Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to our event. We are entering the second session of GRC Summit 2022. In this session, we will lead Mr. Lee Dietmar to deliver a keynote speech on the value creation through GRC, especially in global context. But before I would like to invite Mr. Suryo Rimba Suroto as the leader of this session. I will inform you, don't forget to visit Cyberwell booth, and you may take your special number to win any special door prize for today's event. And now this session will be led by Mr. Suryo Rimba Suroto. He is a certified practitioner, assessor, and a trainer in risk management. Other fields of expertise are in quality management, business process improvement, and anti-bribery management. Currently active as a governance and risk management division head in PT Jakarta Propertindo Perseroda, a local government company owned by DKI Jakarta Province. And in his free time, he loves to travel and write articles about comics book and participate as co-editor for Risk Management Case Study, a book published by IRMAPA in 2019. So, please give the best applause for Mr. Suryo Rimba Suroto.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All the participants, either you are here online or on-site. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera buat kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. On behalf of GRC Summit 2022, I welcome you all in this very special event in 2022. Today, in this session, we have the honor to be with our keynote speaker, Mr. Lee Dietmar. My name is Suryo Rimba Suroto, and I will be your host for Mr. Lee Dietmar's session. All through the session, I will accompany Mr. Dietmar on stage and guide you all the way through question and answer session. Let me give you an introduction of our famous keynote speaker. Currently, Mr. Dietmar is the president of Business Solution Incorporated and a retired partner of Deloitte. He co-founded a management consulting firm, built a successful business, and became well known for his role as an expert witness in regulatory proceedings and civil litigation dealing with multi-billions dollar programs. Lee is an CEG fellow who helped shape the early ideas of GRC and the GRC capability model. National Law Journal named Mr. Lee Dietmar to the top 50 governance, risk, and compliance trailblazers and pioneers. Treasury and Risk Management magazine identified Lee as among the 100 most influential people in finance 3 years in a row. A little overview on Mr. Dietmar's presentations, which will cover the topic, value creation through GRC, global phenomena. Organization facing highly dynamic uncertainties. For this reason, the organization's ability to anticipate phenomena is essential, making implementing integrated GRC more challenging. This session will discuss the best practices of GRC implementation are carried out to create sustainable value for organization. A big thankful to Dr. Antonius Alijoyo, the chairman of steering committee of this GRC Summit 2022. We are very also grateful to have him as the Chair of Supervisory Board of all the professionals organizations and or organizations who support the GRC Summit 2022, namely and particularly Center for Risk Management and Sustainability, or CRMS, Indonesia Governance Risk Management and Compliance Association, or Indonesia GRC Association, Indonesia Risk Management Professional Association, or IRMAPA, Professional Association of Governance Indonesia, or PAGI, Indonesia Compliance Professionals Indonesia, ICOPI, Indonesia Professionals in Control and Audit Association, IPACA, LSP MKS, LSP GRK, Way Academy, and also ERMA. Without talking much longer, I invite and welcome you, Mr. Lee Dietmar, to enter the stage. Thank you.
Terima kasih banyak, Suryo. Good morning. This is so impressive. I can't tell you how great it is to see what's happening here in Indonesia around GRC. I was part of a very small group of people in the US 20 years ago that kind of invented GRC. And so I just have to tell you from my heart, I am so impressed. I want to congratulate the organizers of GRC Summit. I want to congratulate you all for investing your time and your talent and your energy in GRC. And I want to challenge you to take it to the next level so that in the future, the rest of the world will come to Indonesia to learn how to do it. Yeah. Okay. So my goal today, what I've been asked to do, is to talk to you about how do we create value with GRC in very turbulent times. I don't think I have to say anything else about what's happening in the world. We know about that. But guess what? Those things aren't uncertain. They've already happened, and they're happening. But there is uncertainty, and we're gonna talk about that. I really love the title, Sailing in the Multiverse of Uncertainty. I'm a sailor. How many of you are sailors? Any sailors in the room? Oh my gosh. How's the sailing around Indonesia? Is it good? No, I do love it. And you know why? Here's why it's so important. When you're a sailor, there are some forces you cannot fight with. You can't fight with the wind. You can't fight with the currents. You have to change your course to take the best advantage of the wind and the currents. And that's really what we're really here about today. So there's no uncertainty about that you cannot sail directly into the wind. And there's some forces that we're facing that we just have to accept them. Some of them, they're not uncertain. What's uncertain is what you do about it, right? But you have control of that. This looks turbulent, but those sailors are in control. They know what they're doing. They're managing the risks, right? They're working as a team. And I've done racing like that, and boy, it's stressful. I think I go the wrong way. There we go. I want to share something personally with you. I've experienced my own personal uncertainty. 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with throat cancer. And my voice used to be strong enough that I wouldn't need a microphone to talk to you. And so it was a real challenge. It was my existential risk event, right? But I'm here with you because I'm completely cured and no more cancer. I had my last scan in May, I'm good, and that's why I'm here with you today. So, a little bit about me. Why isn't up forward? The clickers, they're backwards, right? So, what is uncertainty? We need to talk about this. We throw that word around. Really, what is uncertainty? What does it mean to be uncertain? And why is that a big deal? Well, let's look at the definition in the English, right? Not known beyond doubt, right? That we're not 100% sure. But you know what? There may be still some certainty in there about the direction or the speed. So what, I mean, when you're thinking about, uncertainty, what you're really saying is that we can't say without a doubt exactly what will help happen. But I want to challenge you today, one of the takeaways is, what can you know? What do you know? A lot of people, they search for perfect information before they make a decision, right? And the search for the perfect is often a limiter of progress. Living with uncertainty is one of the few established facts of modern life, right? Whether we were getting here on time was uncertain, right? And it's not just modern life, it's really any life. I love this quote from Winston Churchill. True genius resides in the capacity for evaluation of uncertain, hazardous, and conflicting information. Now, I know there's many senior people here. You know exactly what that means. You never have perfect information. And you still have to guide and make decisions. Whether you're in business or in government, that's our reality. My message is get comfortable with uncertainty. But ask yourself, what's the range of uncertainty? What do we know? Maybe we know boundaries. If we know boundaries, we can make better decisions. I love this. This is a quote from a former Secretary of Defense in the United States, Donald Rumsfeld. Famously, he said, there are no knowns and there are known unknowns, but there are unknown unknowns. Think about that, right? There's things we don't know that we don't know. Hard to manage those, right? I want you to think about this as we go through today, as we go through the next couple of days, right? So, what are the things you know you know? What are the things that you know you don't know? There's where we focus on the risk management. There's where we can quantify. But keep your mind open and keep watching. This is never done. This is never settled, because there will be changes as we go forward that you can't even imagine today. One thing that is for sure is that technology innovation is going to continue at a rapid pace. This is not uncertain. While man may make a mess in the world, in politics and in conflicts, the technology innovation will continue. It always does. It may not be the headline news, but it's happening, even in the most challenging of times. And as GRC professionals, we have an obligation to understand that. Imagine a century of innovation in a decade. That's the speed with regard to exponential technologies. And we'll talk about what those are as we go forward. But there are uncertainties. For the companies, I know for the business person, number one is often regulatory uncertainty. We don't know what the laws will be. We don't know how the rules will change. We know they will, right? But that's why I really love the partnership that I'm seeing here between government and industry, government and business. To see the government officials talking about integrated GRC, it makes me smile very big. It's a very, very good thing. ESG, we heard that from Sophia, is a very, very big thing right now. But things do change. The hot issues do change. those of us in the room that have been around for decades, we've seen these issues. We think we know exactly what it is. We look back in time and it has changed. So ESG uncertainty as well, as in terms of exactly how that is going to play out. So I've changed the question. It isn't just, creating value in the multiverse of uncertainty. It's also creating value amidst this exponential technology change. Because I say the biggest challenge, the biggest risk that you have is not getting involved, is not using and not leveraging and not knowing how to use these new technologies. It could cause existential risk for some businesses. This is a global issue. Companies that are not really involved in facing how to deal with this are going to find trouble ahead. Okay, what is GRC? I wonder if we can all agree on the definition first, okay? Because GRC isn't just governance, risk, and compliance. Yes, that's what the letters stand for. But it's the full set of capabilities that helps an organization, public or private, reliably achieve objectives while addressing uncertainty and acting with integrity. This is the OSIG definition, and it's the crispest, shortest, most succinct definition that I've seen. My original definition was too long, so I like this definition. But think about that. So GRC is a broad set of all the capabilities that it takes to do this. It's a brand new clicker. Oh, wait a minute. Where are we? They're working on it in the back. I have a translation in Bahasa so you could see it. So hopefully we'll get that up. That definition makes sense to you? Does that definition make sense to you? Does it make sense? Yeah. Good. My technical team, okay. I have to tell you one thing. The next time I come to Indonesia, I'm going to have batik shirt. It's much more comfortable than the suit and tie. I really love them. Maybe someone will help me find one to buy to take back to America when I leave, okay? That's what I'd like to do. Okay, let me go back one. So, 3 persistent themes, and I say persistent, I mean, for me, these were themes of mine when we first started talking about GRC. The first was integrate GRC, and that means the GRC isn't in a separate building, it's not a different group, it's GRC. These capabilities are integrated in the core operations. They're part of the strategy. They're part of the vision. That's the best practice. And to see you use that term integrated all the time, it brings joy to me. The other thing is leverage technology. Very important. You cannot do this with just manual process. It's too difficult. It's not possible to do it well. In the very small companies, maybe for a while. But even there, very important to leverage technology. And then the third thing, don't look at this as just a compliance exercise. Pursue value. And I will have an example about how that was done in the early days. So integrate, use technology, pursue value. GRC shouldn't just add to cost. maybe it shouldn't have to cost at all if it's done well. So, how did this all start? How did I get involved in this? So, some of you will remember back in the early 2000s, there were some very notable breakdowns at corporations, probably most notably Enron. You heard that, WorldCom, big issues. And so we got new law in the United States called Sarbanes-Oxley. That's Paul Sarbanes and Michael Oxley. They were real people. And it was the most sweeping securities legislation in probably 50 years. It was a very, very big deal. And it was a challenge dealing with it, and I actually started and ran a practice that leveraged all the capabilities that we had in the firm to help many, many, many clients all over the world to comply with Sarbanes-Oxley. The first article that I wrote about Sarbanes-Oxley, I co-authored with 2 other colleagues, was called The Currency of Good Governance. The currency of good governance. And what was that currency? That currency was high quality information, because trust had been broken between the companies and the people that were their creditors or their investors. There was a lack of trust. It was fairly broad too. So the challenge was needing to have high quality information. So we'll talk more, but take this away now. Having high quality information is essential to effective GRC. Now, Sarbanes-Oxley was a very, very challenging legislation, and companies who were not happy, chief financial officers were not happy in the main, because it was a lot of work, years of work, really, to document controls and bring structure to this process. But, you know, I must say it was surprising. Really, it wasn't about accounting. It wasn't about accounting. It was about people, process, and technology, right? It was about how do we produce financial reports? How do we actually do that? And companies needed to improve their processes, and they needed to improve their tools. Well, what we observed, this was an article I co-authored in 2006, and it was quite a controversial title, The Unexpected Benefits of Sarbanes-Oxley. How could such an onerous regulation have benefits, right? Well, we had well over 20 companies that explained to us how they pursued Sarbanes-Oxley to achieve benefit, to make things better, to make their controls better, their processes better, their tools better, their organization better. The compliance challenge was a catalyst. It was a reason. Perhaps they would not have gotten the budget to do it without the compliance challenge. But it was like martial arts. It was like taking that compliance and then turning it around into how do we make things better? How do we do things faster? How do we do things cheaper? Technology is a major theme of what companies all over the world are dealing with to make their GRC better. 20 years ago, the technologies that we had weren't anything close to what we can do today. You're all familiar with Moore's Law. You know Moore's Law, where what you can put on one chip doubles every 18 months at the same cost or less. So think about 20 years of that innovation in the computing power, right, with the software to go along with it. So what we can do today as Indonesia's on its journey around technology is so much greater than we had even just a few years ago. So, but the thing about technology, it is both a solution and a challenge, right? Number one issue, we have to deal with risk these days, cybersecurity, right? Because we are in the digital age. And the cybersecurity is a big problem. We have to deal with it, and we will, and it's getting better. But just because we have those issues doesn't mean we turn away from technology, because they are also the solutions for the problems and the needs that we have going forward. All right, maybe we step back. What is exponential technology when we talk about that? Sophia mentioned the exponential change in hers. So maybe a little lesson. So if we take linear steps, if I take 30 linear steps, how far will I have gone? Maybe 30 meters, right? That's linear. And by the way, that's the way our minds work. We're linear thinkers. Exponential is not how we think as human beings. So if we think about exponential, for the mathematicians in the audience, right? This is what an exponential curve looks like. That's the doubling in every period of time. So I said linear, we take 30 steps, we go 30 meters. If we take 30 exponential steps, it's over 1 billion meters, or to help the mind, 26 times around the world. That is what we're talking about when we talk about exponential technologies. It's hard to even wrap our heads around that, right? Those large numbers. I've not walked around the world 26 times. I want to commend a book to you that I recently read. It's about 2 years old. Important to get this foundation about what this means to have exponential technologies, called The Future is Faster Than You Think. So the things we're talking about here, this isn't years away, right? This is coming very fast. In some respects, the future has already arrived. Peter Diamandis is the main thought leader in that book, and he talks about converging exponential technologies, about when these technologies intersect and come together, then incredible things happen. That's where self-driving cars and self-flying drones, and that's where synthetic biology and so forth. And one of the cores is around artificial intelligence, which requires this incredible computing power to make it work. But we have it now, and imagine it's going to keep getting better, right? And in addition to this list of things, you're going to see quantum computing come out maybe in the next decade, which is going to take us to a whole new level. So this, by the way, for us as GRC practitioners, we have to think both the good and the risks associated with these things. And I would challenge you to say that we don't have a list of what those are yet, because these are new. They're just coming to us. But we have to be a part of managing the risks, but also GRC also has to be part of the birthing, the bringing to the front of these technologies in a way to make things better. A couple of quotes I thought I'd share. This is not just me. I'm sure some of you in the room know it, but the head of Alphabet, the Google holding company, artificial intelligence could have more profound implications than electricity and fire. It's pretty incredible. Elon Musk, companies have to race to build AI because their competitors that do will crush them. And the author of the book is probably the boldest. There'll be two kinds of companies by the end of this decade. Those that have mastered AI and are using it, and the rest will be out of business. That's a pretty bold challenge for you. And, I want you to think about this not just in the core business, but in how you do GRC, okay? Okay, the main question that we wanted me to cover is, so how does GRC, I don't want to say create value, I want to say protect value and produce value, right? Protect and produce. And this is a part of the discussion, part of this could be anywhere in the world. So the first thing I mentioned earlier from 20 years ago, information quality. Information quality means you can turn data into information, information into insight, and you can get it where it needs to be, whatever that stakeholder is, internal and external. Let me ask you a question. This is a question I've asked many times. How many of you work for an organization that consistently get the information you need, in the form you need it, when you need it, where you need it? Raise your hand if you work for that organization. Right. I've asked that question maybe 100 times to audiences all over the world of every size. I think I've had 5 hands go up total, right? We know we have to improve our ability to manage data, turn it into information, get the insights, and then get it in the right place. If you can do that, you'll win. So hopefully, in the not too distant future, when I ask that question, maybe we see some more hands. So the first thing I'll tell you is a good GRC program will produce value by being part of producing high quality information and getting it to the right place. It's about making decisions. How do you make good decisions without information? Information that's relevant and timely and accurate and reliable. And for GRC, we have to think about assurance, especially when we're doing compliance reporting or putting things out to our external stakeholders. We can't just say things, we have to have the data to back them up. And I know for many of the businesses in Indonesia, the first step is we need to start collecting the data, right? Before we can do the advanced stuff. Now, everywhere, organizations struggle with this, and the number one problem, it's pervasive and it's persistent, is silos. You know what silos? What is the word for silos in Bahasa? Silo? Good. Right. And there are organizational silos, right? There's this group and that group, and then you have the data silos, and then you have the technology silos. Well, that complexity is a problem. This is what that looks like, right? This is the current state for many organizations. Fragmentation, duplication, inefficiency, cracks in the process. So that's not a good place to stay, right? We don't want to stay there. Now, a slide that Sophia shared, this picture, the first version of that I was part of doing is 2006. The first version of this. This is the 2012 update. So this is where we want to be. We want to go from that fragmentation state to this state. And how do you do that? This is going to sound overly simplistic. Eliminate unnecessary complexity. Eliminate unnecessary complexity. All right, and that could be not doing things 5 different ways, making sure you have consistent definition of data and information. It's the key. Complexity, sometimes complexity is necessary. When it's unnecessary, it is your nemesis, it is your enemy. So the next thing, and this is really for Indonesia. I understand about the goals of your law number 20, 2014, and the effort that Hendro is doing around standardization and conformity assessment. Well, the GRC framework and the GRC sort of insights can really help that overall. And I've borrowed some information from Hendro about what the objectives of law number 20 are in 2014. And I love this. Look at these things: business continuity, transparent business competition, the ability of business actors, to innovate. This is great, right? And so GRC will help with that. GRC will protect and produce value by being prepared for the innovation and the exponential technology. How do you do that? You anticipate, right? So there are things we know the technology is going to keep getting better. So that is something that we have to do as GRC professionals. And then what I would say is you want to lead in the use of technology, lead in the use of AI. Be thinking about that now. There's many ways. I would like to talk longer about this, but in terms of risk management and risk monitoring, the technology is going to let us do things that today we dream about so that we can get out ahead of them. Be prepared for the accelerating speed of consequence. Does that make sense? A bad thing happens, the consequence is felt almost immediately these days. There's no time to have a meeting and pull everyone back together. If you don't anticipate how fast the negative things will happen, you won't have time to fix it. I will say, my opinion, the future of GRC will be the collaboration of human and AI. That's where the future will go. So we should get on the journey as soon as we can. On AI, one of the things we're facing is regulatory complexity. Every country is coming up with its proposed rules and guidelines about how they will oversee the use of AI. A lot of it is about data privacy, but it goes deeper than that. So if you're operating globally, as I know many of the businesses want to, we have to deal with this. GRC needs to help with that, okay? It's a global compliance challenge. And there's another reality about AI today. I don't want you to think that every company in other parts of the world has mastered this. They haven't. The AI projects are mostly still failing or failing to deliver on the vision. And some of the issues that we see is the models are a black box, meaning that there's not transparency of what's happening. And so then the business users don't trust it. And so I've seen situations where the AI is built, is a good model on the good data, but the company's not using it because there's not trust. I think this is an important part of GRC role. We have to deal with things like model risk management that will come into your lexicon as we go forward, and providing assurance on an ongoing basis that the AI is doing what we expect it to do. Okay, I'm going to wrap up here. Some summary things. One, I talked a lot about these two things this morning: information quality and technology. So I won't say anything more about those at the moment, but I want to add 3 C's that need to be at the core. One is culture. The big failures at Enron and WorldCom, no amount of controls on financial reporting would have solved those problems. Culture. And key in that is leadership, especially if you're trying to overcome silos and do things a different way. So that is number 1. Number 2, congruence. What do I mean? Simple way to think about congruence is what you say is consistent with what you do. It's not good enough to just have a policy, but you must actually act in those ways. Or you will not have trust in your organization or outside of it. And finally, the importance of communication. Transparent, trustworthy communication to all stakeholders. And I know this is often a challenge about how much and when, but these 3 C's are foundational. This This is a slide that I first used in 2005 about my vision of integrating GRC. So it's not just integrating the G, the R, and the C, but it's integrating with actual performance. You know, and they're not different sides of a coin. These things have to be together. So my final words to you are, embrace the uncertainty, because it is probably the only thing that is certain. Anticipate the future, even if it's not perfect forecasting, and enjoy the journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee Dietmar. And now we're going for the question and answer session. We have around 15 minutes. And please, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions you want to address to Mr. Lee Dietmar, you can use the GRC Summit application. There is a menu inside where you can submit your questions, and I will read it to Mr. Lee Dietmar. So thank you, Lee. There is a first question here from Amran. The question is, why GRC, not RGC or CRG? That is the first question.
Oh, that's such a good question. It was actually, it's arbitrary. I don't really call what you call it. I don't care what you call it. But GRC, that was the word, because back in the 2000s, the biggest issues were governance, risk management, and compliance. That's all. It was that simple. And right now, there's many people want to change GRC to ESGRC and everything. It's a difference without distinction, right? It doesn't matter. GRC works, right? And it no longer stands for governance, risk, and compliance. It subsumes and includes those things as foundational, but there's more to do. It doesn't say ethics, it doesn't say assurance, it doesn't say all the other functional things that go into an effective GRC program. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, Lee. And the second question from the same person, Arman. The second question is, how soon GRC will eventually achieve its objectives from its first establishment, and what are the top key determinants to succeed?
Well, let me take the second part first. Some of the things I talked about here, these are the top things you need to succeed. But you have to have persistence. I see persistence in many of the people I've met in the last week. Anton, a vision, but persistent, right? He will not accept no. He will get to yes. Persistence. Look at my journey, 20 years. And what I see going on here, to me, is a great success. I never would have imagined that we'd have a country level interest and focus on GRC. So you're already succeeding in having alignment around the principles and the concept. But you're not done, right? So the first part, how long before it delivers on the vision? Well, here's what you won't realize. It's delivering now, and it will deliver tomorrow, and it'll deliver the next day. But what it's delivering will change as you continue to grow through this. This is a journey without an end destination, okay? That is in the unknown unknowns. Stay on the journey. Don't let perfection get in the way of progress. Because one of the questions I get all the time is that, can you prove with statistics that integrated GRC is better? No. But what I can prove is by talking with the leaders of many companies is that they wouldn't do it any other way because of how they are experiencing benefits in their organization. So it's a good question. You're already achieving some benefits, and the vision, keep working, stay on the journey. We could be talking in 20 years, hopefully I'm still alive then, about what the next part of that vision will be.
Thank you, Lee. I hope that all of you are encouraged to send questions to Mr. Lee, because I hope I'm not mistaken, because there's only one question here in my tablet. So please, if any of you have more questions, then you can address to Mr. Lee Ditmar. You can submit it through the application. And perhaps maybe some of you would like to address it directly to Mr. Lee Ditmar, and not using the applications, just in case you want to ask Mr. Lee Ditmar directly. Anyone? Mr. Fajar Proboseno, perhaps? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Lee Ditmar, thank you very much for your interesting explanation. But one thing, that the question that you asked us about how we prepare about knowing about the future. Because the company can be prepared for knowing what's going to happen and then prepare for that. How GRCs in the real life can affect to those, help us company to make decisions. That is sometimes it's not easy in a changing world. As you know, information is always changing. Situation is always changing. We don't even know what's going to happen maybe next week. So maybe you can explain how GRC in the implementations can really support us on this. Thank you.
So great question. Just to repeat, what I understood is, how can GRC help us make better decisions is really the essence. Well, decision making is based on getting the information we have available to us, understanding our values and our objectives, and then making the best possible decision. So GRC can help make a decision, help decisions be better by a better understanding of the risks, a better understanding of the mathematical uncertainties and ranges, right? It can help there. But today's GRC can help by, we can learn from the past, we can understand how forces are changing, because the forces that gave us the lessons of the past may not be today's forces, right? And then we can make a better decision. We say we have predictive analytics. What we really have is an understanding of what happened in the past, and then we can extrapolate. We can say, if those things keep happening, here's what happens. But now we can bring in changes, in different forces and different factors to get to better data. The thing about decision making, here's the fact. Most, especially at the senior level, decisions are made on experience and gut, right? The judgment of the leader. But we can make that better if they have data, if they have information, right? If they don't have the data, it's like flying the airplane without the dashboard, right? And they may think it's okay. If GRC can do one thing, if it can make the data more trustworthy for the decision maker, oh my, what a wonderful world that would be, right? Because I know, because I've gotten to work with many senior decision makers, the thing that frustrates them is how hard it is to get information. I take one more minute on this, and the senior executive will bring his staff in and say, I have a question, I need an answer. And the staff, they leave the room, and do they go to the computer to make a report? No. They run around and they talk to this person and that person, and they go through a very big effort to try to answer the question. Why? Right? Because the systems and the data aren't in place to provide information when you need it, where you need it, right? So it's a great question, and it's a journey, and the prioritization is where in the decision making do we need to improve the information most? Because you can't do everything all at one time. It's a very good question.
Thank you, Lee. There is the third question from Nazli Parlindungan Siregar, MSIG. Mr. Lee, do you think after Sarbanes-Oxley, the corporate audited financials are under better control? If yes, how do you know that?
So do I think that after we had basically all the public companies review their controls for financial reporting and work on them, did it make it better? Yes, I do. Absolutely. So there are many good companies without ethical problems, without the leadership issues that maybe Enron WorldCom had, that when they took a close look, they saw that it was just too hard and too expensive and too many manual processes, and they're bringing together their financial information. And so yes, and I'll go one further, that focus on improving financial reporting information spread to other areas, so that there became a whole practice around, how do you become data-driven? How do you become insight-driven? How do you get good information about your supply chain and your customers, right? And take about GRC, like how do we know we really understand the regulation, right? So information management and analytics and now cognitive computing and artificial intelligence is so big, right? And it all began with a focus on financial reporting. It may have grown in those other areas as well. So we improved that, and then we spread the insights and the lessons and the approaches to make it better across the areas. So yeah, I do think that collectively we have better historical financial information because of Sarbanes-Oxley, especially in the large companies. But the journey must continue with regard to high quality information.
Thank you, Lee. There is another question from Irma Dana Putri Kusuma. She's from Tugure Asuransi. The question is, ESG uncertainty and technology changes as a major issues of uncertainty force us to have new structure and process. Question is how to culture it so stakeholders will fit in the all aspect changes needed.
That's an interesting one. So I think if I understood right, the question is about the external stakeholders that have the interest in ESG, right? And how we cultivate. Yeah. That's a big challenge, right? Because on ESG issues, we do want to be data driven, right? We don't just want slogans and feel good. You know the term in the English we call it greenwashing, right? Greenwashing, saying very wonderful things about environmental while doing different things. And now, then we have the social issues. Yes, we will do that. Yes, we will do that. But are you really looking at what the effects are? I think this is a big challenge because so much around ESG, we report the inputs, we report what we did, but we don't talk enough about the result. Did we get to the result? We don't measure the result as much as we argue about the inputs and the what to change. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about what's happening in the big picture of ESG with regard to financial returns. There was just a study published in the Harvard Business Review, and it looked at all the mutual funds that invest in ESG companies that say they have a very strong message about their ESG. Well, guess what the study found? Were the financial returns better or worse? They were worse. But the worst part is that it didn't find that those companies had done any better with regard to advancing ESG goals. So what they had done was a great job of, yay, we're doing it. Yes, we're going to do that. Yes, we support that. They didn't have congruence between the word and the deed. So I think ESG has great ambition. I think it's very important, but we can't just do it with words, right? And I think there needs to be really good dialogue with the external stakeholders. The government and the business people that are involved in these things know more about what's really happening often than the external stakeholder, right? So so I would say two other things, and that is, you need to have integrity that if you support an ESG, whatever that is, then make it because you really believe it. Because if you don't, you will be found out. Your lack of sincerity will show, okay? And then the other thing is be adaptable, because what's being pushed today, what's hot today, may not be the issue in a few years, right? Something may come in and intervene, right, and become the next issue. Or who knows, maybe we'll come up with technical solution and we have a big breakthrough on environment and climate change and severe weather, right? Maybe a big breakthrough comes that we don't even know right now, but we'll have another issue. ESG is about really thinking about the overall environment in which we operate and making sure that as we do operate, we're considering, the impacts on all of the different stakeholders.
Thank you, Lee. Actually, I have around 4 to 5 questions, and already we have, yes, but from the remaining questions, I have one interesting question, and I hope that we still have time to discuss this. How do we ensure that the management has the same understanding of GRC and its implementation?
How do we assure that the management have the same understanding? Well, communication, right? Boy, 40 years as a consultant, this is such a common issue, right? Because the people doing the work always have the better appreciation for how the thing needs to change. They see that first. It's just true. So I think it takes persistence. It can't be just theory and concepts. And one thing we learned is that in each organization, there'll be a way to talk about GRC that will work. And you may need to change the words. You may not even be able to use GRC. Now, in Indonesia, we can say GRC. We have a lot of people who understand what that means. But, not in every organization. You may have to come up with your own words inside your organization. You may have to have your own analogies or metaphors. In some business, the sports metaphor works, right? In some, it may be, the orchestra. So, on the sports, you have plays in sports because the team, right, has to do all the same thing. In the orchestra, would you let the musicians come and play whatever tune they wanted while they're in the orchestra? No. Why would we do that in the business? But we do. That's why we have that chaos picture, right? And the management is the conductor, right? And I believe that with the good communication and the continued journey, that you'll bring even reluctant managers on board. It's so much easier when you have this driven by the senior leaders in the firm and they have alignment, right? Because change management, it doesn't matter whether it's GRC or putting in a new enterprise system or changing a business strategy, the change management is very, very important. And there may be some people in the room that practice in this area, but change management has its own tools. It has its own processes and approach. It's very doable, but it takes work. And unfortunately, it's often left out, right? And it can't be left out. When you're making transformation, not just incremental change, you must practice good change management.
Thank you, Lee. That is our last question. Thank you, Lee, for your time.
Please give the best
Thank you very
applause
much.
for all of us.
Okay, I will return the stage to you, the MC.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Suryo Rimba Suroto and Mr. Lee Dietmar for your very, very great explanation. And what a coherently insightful lesson that we have to receive. Would you mind to stay in the stage with me? All right, and before we proceed the next session, I would like to invite to the stage Mr. Waluyo to give the token of appreciation to Mr. Lee Dietmar and Mr. Suryo Rimba Suroto. To Mr. Waluyo, please join us to the stage. And once again, I would like to invite all right. I would like to invite Mr. Antonius to come to join us to the stage to give the token of appreciation to Mr. Lee Dietmar and Mr. Suryo Rimba Suroto. The first token of appreciation is for
thank you very much, Lee Dietmar. Thank you very much, Pak Suryo Rimbo. Actually, it's supposed to be given by Pak Waluyo as the board of GRC Association, but he actually apologized to the toilet, and seems like that he need more time than he promised to come back. So then I'm going to represent to hand it over the token appreciation. Yeah.
all right. The first token of appreciation is given from Mr. Antonius Alijoyo to Mr. Lee Dietmar. Please give the best applause for all of us. Would you mind to hold on for a second to take a picture together? All right, thank you. And now the second one's from Mr. Antonius Alijoyo to Mr. Suryo Rimba Suroto. Please give the best applause for all of us. Yeah. And now we want to take a picture together. Maybe Mr. Anton in the center? Oh. All right. On my count. 3, 2, 1. Give your best smile. Once again, 3, 2, 1. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. And please be seated again. Thank you very much. This is the best session that currently insightful lesson that we have to receive from Mr. Lee Dietmar and led by Mr. Suryo Rimba Suroto. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are entering the third session of the GRC Summit 2022 panel discussion. We would like to invite Mr. Fajar Proboseno. Mr. Fajar will lead the panel discussion session as the moderator, and there will also be a presentation from the panelists, and I would like to read some of his resume. Mr. Fajar Proboseno, previously title Head of Risk Management and Head of Internal Audit in Astra International Tbk, currently as Technical Advisor and Master Trainer of CRMS and ERMA with more than 5,000 hours of training as a trainer in Indonesia and many countries, and currently in position as member of Risk Oversight and Integrated Governance Committee in IFG. So, Mr. Fajar, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, namo buddhaya. Ya, saya tahu ini almost lunchtime, yeah. But I promise you that these three distinguished speakers is worth to wait, yeah. It's worth the starvations that you are going to have after this, yeah. And I'm just not gonna make it short. I'm not gonna reach the long CVs, my pardon, because the time. I really want to use the time to hear their explanations about the GRC. So let me welcome first Ibu Cynthia Rusli, Director of Finance and Risk Management of PT PLN Indonesia, also the advisory board member in G20. Welcome, Ibu Cynthia. Please take a seat. Next, I call Bapak Hendro Kusumo as Deputy Chairman of Standard Development of BSN, Standard National Agency Indonesia. And the third, Bapak Adi Budiarso, as the Director of Financial Sector Policy, Fiscal Policy Agency of Ministry of Finance. Yes, this is going to be very short because their presentations is only 15 minutes for each, yeah? And we only 15 minutes to have a question and answer. So prepare your pen, prepare your pencil, write down on your tablet, you know, for the questions, because yes, it is very short, but yeah, you don't want to miss this. So I a little modified about the speaker's sequence. We will start from Ibu Cynthia Rusli for the presentations, yeah, from PLN. So big applause for Ibu Cynthia Rusli from PLN for his presentations. Please, Bu.
Terima kasih. Thank you, Pak Fajar. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It's very great honor for me to be here amongst everyone. I've seen some familiar faces, some of my friends from PLN also here, and some professionals in risk management. I believe
English.
Oh, should be English. Okay. So I think we've heard a great presentations from Lee Dietmar that most of the framework in risk management and what are the challenges that we have now. It's very, very interesting. I take notes on some of the presentations, but today's, I think it's good time also for us to see how those framework and challenges and, you know, the things that have been set out by Lee Dietmar have been implemented in PLN. So I think this is probably one of the real cases that we have faced in the midst of uncertainties and using of the technology, as well as how we've seen the ESG have already coming to our face recently, and how PLN could face all of this, especially with the challenge of the COVID that we have been experienced for the last 2 years. The slide, please. So the title is really, probably the title first. Thanks. So the GRC implementation in the cash war room in PT PLN Persero. So the cash war room, I would explain a bit about what is the cash war room. So it's basically just a title to show that this is a forum that, you know, that we've seen that there should be many parties in this room. It's a kind of a psychology. There is a war to solve something in the company. So it started, you know, back last year, I think 2 years ago, right after the COVID hit our country back by end of March 2020, and we start kicking off this program, and we've seen, you know, the journey will still continue till the moment, and I've also will explain how the journey that we have been doing for the last 2 years, and how the result of the cash war room in implementing the GRC, as well as addressing the challenge that we have. So in accordance with the theme that we have now, surviving and reviving through the GRC, I hope this case study from PLN would give some insights for everyone, that the theoretical framework of the GRC would basically have already experienced by PLN, and it shows a good result already. Next, please. So I think if you know PLN, of course, it's one of the key important aspect in our life, except that Lee Dietmar mentioned that the next competitor for electricity is AI. So, but for now, I think we agree that PLN is quite an important company in this country. We have about 1,600 trillion assets, and in terms of the size, PLN spending average 1.2 trillion per day. So we have revenues and costs of around 400 trillion or 450 trillion, including our capex. So OPEX and capex, so we spend almost every day 1.2 trillion rupiah. So it's one of the biggest company in this country, and we should be, concerned on how this company be run by the management and all the employees, and how this company would keep delivering the good quality power supply to the people, driving the economy, and also help develop the welfare of the country. So we will see how this big company have a very concern about the GRC for the last 2 years, and this is basically, I would like to mention I'm the first director in charge for the risk management in the company. Before there is no director, specific director in risk management, and before the team was only 24 when I was joining the company back late December 2019, and now we have 240. So it's 10 times bigger than the original staffs. And I should also explain that one of the SAVP for the risk management is here, is Bu Khairani, and some of the team is joining our session today. So this cash flow room is basically improving the quality decision making that we have, and we can see the result, for 2020 and 2021. PLN has already booked the biggest profit in the long history of PLN since its inception 77 years ago. So everyone in the company, including the government, our shareholders, also acknowledge that most of the efforts that we have been doing for the last 2 years have shown the result of what we are doing positively, while at the same time, during the COVID situations, we are able to keep continuing high quality service with very minimum interruptions for the customers, as well as the profitability. And along the way, we are able to also keep on pushing our demand and keep the company sustained for a couple years down the road. Next, please. So this is just a glimpse of PLN. We have 11 subsidiaries as total. We have 53,000 employees, including the outsource is about almost 180,000 people that have been also participating in the supply chain of the value chain of the PLN. The revenue is around 300 trillion now. We expect this year is about 400 trillion. Our capital expenditures is about 70 trillion per annum. Next, please. So I think everyone in this room already know this. And also Lee Dietmar have mentioned about the definition of GRC, where he says that the capabilities and culture of the company that enable the company to realistically achieve its objective by reducing uncertainty, yet implementing the integrity in the operations. Next, please. So within PLN, since 2.5 years ago, we issued our transformation program. So we also set up the values, as well as, the values is also aligned with the Ministry of SOE values for the state-owned enterprises. And along the values, we also implement the GRC as a culture, and also collaboration, performance culture, as well as service cultures. So from those three pillars, we have seen, various activities along each pillars that we have seen. Everyone in the company now also understand that this transformation have already engaged into the everyday activities in the company. And this culture transformation program have been already engaged with the company with the assistance of various experts and consultants. Next. So I think this is just the more detail of the numbers and how we compare with some other big SOEs. Next. So I think this is how the GRC implementation in PLN. So I think most of you have familiar with the framework. So we have the governance, we have all these documents reference, as well as the strategic leadership that we need to have in our governance perspective. On the risk management, of course, the ERM, the business continuity management, apart from the risk culture, as well as the compliance perspective. And within PLN, there is also an interesting compliance practice that we have. It's not only the generic compliance that we mostly know, but also with regard to the anti-fraud and corruptions, also put into the umbrella of the compliance. And within the risk management in PLN, of course, we implement the 3 lines model. And also interesting is the second part is the 4 I's principle. I think everyone also understand that 4 I's principle is mostly implemented in the banking industry. But as we had previously the CEO from the bank, Bank Mandiri at the time, and we are trying to implement the 4 I's principle in the decision-making process in the company. And we can say up to now that this is something great, and we have also been developing the system, the capabilities, and we can say that this 4 I's principle is something that have been provided some result for the company positively. And of course, in the decision-making process, the risk factor, the risk management is very, very important. So our team, as a second line of defense, develop the strategy, the framework, and also ensure that the business process owner also understand and monitor the risk mitigation plan that they have for every individual investment that is matter for the company. Next. So this is the effect. So basically, I would need to say that at the very beginning, the real uncertainty within PLN when we got hit with the COVID by March 2020, we don't know, at that time, we don't know what was going to happen, because I think we are in the stage of known unknown. So we've seen also some other utilities all around the world, and they have projected at that time, that the demand in electricity would be double-digit declining, double-digit growth, minus double-digit. And then at that time, we also very quickly set up the team to respond to the situations and take notes on everything that we should be aware of in terms of the risk, because we don't know what happened to the demand, we don't know what happened to the commodity price, we don't know what happened to to the situations in the people mobility. So at that time, we quickly respond to that in developing our COVID response team. And we are also doing a certain analysis of the demand, and we have the white paper to respond to that. And at the time, as a tools, we do have this, we created at the time this cash war room. And what it would be there at the time, because we had the challenge at the very beginning of the COVID of the invoice, I can share now because it's already done, about 24 trillion rupiah outstanding invoice at the time, and we are at a very pressing situation where we don't know how to pay that because the liquidity market is really uncertain at that time. So the cash war room is basically developed for addressing the liquidity risk. So we are developing what we call it the risk culture around the whole PLN group, and we are doing the communication, and we are setting up the framework and system along the way. So this is very interesting situation, and I think the result we can see later on. But the fact that we have had the best, the best financial performance for the long history of PLN in 2021 is part of the result of the cash war room initiative that we have in the company. Next, the journey, I think. Yeah, so this is basically, we start mid-2020. So we are focusing on the cash to address the challenge at that time, because we don't know what would be our revenues from the customers. We expect the demand would be minus 10% at the time, and we don't know how to ensure that we are able to continue paying our suppliers at the time. And we are focusing on the cash war room 1.0 on the cash and liquidity. So that's basically we do, almost every day, and we have this cadence meeting. We have a weekly cadence, and all the investment decision would be centralized, and the assessment would be through cash war room 1.0. Once we pass the year in 1.0, and we have a kind of a bit of confidence in our liquidity, then we increase into cash war room 2.0 with the more focus, additional focus on the budget and performance control. So at the time also we are developing a system, a dashboard. We use technology, information, transparency, and we also push everyone to have their plan, the budget, and also the actual. They need to monitor the historical performance as well as the rolling forecast. So this is also the first time that we are pushing this company to have the capability of having a rolling forecast for each of the individual items in our P&L. And along the way, we also introduce our central planning, the centralized planning, streams. And after the 2.0 successful, then we have also introduced the cash war room 3.0. It's just kicked off this month. And apart from cash and liquidity, budget and performance control, integrated investment management, we are also introducing new streams, 3 new streams. One, the ESG, and second is financial risk, and the third is asset management. So I would say that most of the things that we are doing in PLN have aligned with what Lee Dietmar has mentioned and explained about what is the best practice happening in the GRC around the world. And I can say that PLN have proved that this is something true, and have delivered some fruitful results for the company. Next, should we have time? So this is some of the things, more detail on how the GRC implementations in each of the cash flow room 1.0 and 2.0. So we look into the whole aspects of, like for example, this is for investment management. And one, the institutional wise, we gather every functions, the relevant functions into the cash flow room, and we look into various aspects that matters to the investment decision making, including all the information necessary to get into the decision making process. And next, so this is just an example how we look into the prioritization of the project, screening of the project, filtering of the project, look into the financial perspective as well, and look into whether the project is needed by regulatory requirements, or is it mandatory by the system, or it's just an investment that will increase our profitability. So we have this framework in place, and also ensure that everyone understand the framework, and also we do the capacity building along the way while doing this assessment during the year of 2022 to 2021. Next. So this is the result for the cash forum 1.0, because we are focusing on the cash and liquidity. We are developing a cash culture. So what we are focusing on at the time is what we call it the cash release. So the cash release is really getting the cash in from the customers as quick as possible, push ourselves to ensure that the demand is there and increasing, and second, push down the account receivables so that we can get the conversions of the cash cycles from the consumer and from the revenue quickly. And then also we reduce the cash out as much as possible, of course, in accordance with our contract and the obligations. But interestingly, with the whole process and everyone is involved, we are able to get the cash release, around 20 trillion at the time. So that helps us a lot. Initially we planned to have an investment about 75 trillion, and we managed to cut down about 40% of that. So cash-wise, cash expense, cash out is really, really controlled. And we have the spend control tower, not only for the CapEx, but also for the OpEx. So this is becoming a culture in the company with the right mindset, and also with the right framework in terms of what we call the GRC. And for the investment, it's not only on the substance, but also the documentations and the process. So we have gone through all the documents. It has to go to the legal opinion on the compliance. From the compliance department, we have to have this risk assessment, and we have the risk analysis, risk mitigation plan, and how to address that and to get into our risk appetite. So it's interesting that under a certain pressing situations, PLN have successfully gone through the situations, and everyone is very enthusiastic in doing this. So this is the beauty of the process within the PLN. And along the line, also we have quite a good program in human resources, capacity building, and of course, as I mentioned before, adapting the technology. At that time, in 2020, it's only 25 dashboard. But up to now, until Cash Forum 3.0, we have already 465 dashboard in our system. So we have this weekly cadence, we have this performance business review for every month, utilizing all this dashboard. So we have started also to instill the data-driven culture in the company, not only knowing the cash culture or financial acumen in the corporate operations, but also start to have the decision-making based on the data and utilizing our technology that we have. Next.
My apologize, Bu.
Time
1
is
minute.
up. Okay, one minute. Yes,
please. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the process. Just continue, please. So this is the investment business process. So we have also started to implement what we call it, as I mentioned before about the 4I's principle, we do implement what we call it investment committee. So there is 5 committees in the company implemented, and there is a verification and validation team comprising of various functions in the company, and they scrutinize the risk, mostly of the risk and the feasibility of the project, financial feasibility, legal, environmental, and social, the risk mitigations, and compliance, of course, and the legal. So this is becoming now a new culture. We've been doing this for the last almost 1 year already, and we have learned a lot from this process. So we keep on continuing on improving our investment business processes through implementing the 4I's principles. Next. So I think this is some of the examples in one, maybe you can read this later. So I'm showing this one of the project for construction of the cable from Priok to Kemayoran, 150 kV, and how we look into each aspect of the good corporate governance, the risk, the compliance, and also the performance. So this is becoming a new culture in PLN. So everyone needs to do the memo, the proposal that shows all these 7 aspects that they need to show to the investment committee and verified and validated by our verification and validation team. Next, I think last one. So this is probably some of the key success that I can share for everyone. So it's interesting that we realize that we have a dynamic team out of this exercise, and we start to push that every rupiah that we spend is counted, and quick, right, and safe decision making is important. So we need to have the right framework and the right system in place, with, of course, the right information system of also with the data, and collaborative culture, performance excellence, sustainable executions, and capacity building. So I think that's probably the thing that we are able to share today. Thanks to my team that has been here. They are quite, very dedicated to push this through. And we are all, I think, believe that the GRC is something not in theory, but also something that can be implemented in day-to-day operations of a corporate, even a corporate as complex and as big as PLN. And we've seen the results so far. So I think that's all my presentation. Thanks a lot. Looking forward to discussion.
Thank you very much, Ibu Cynthia Rusli. It was a very, very interesting, amazing presentations. I don't want to stop actually, but the time doesn't allow us. Yeah. So yeah, we have to go to the next presenter, Bapak Hendro. Yeah. So I will give the mic to Pak Hendro. Oh, already have. Yeah. So please, Pak Hendro.
Okay.
It is yours.
Thank you, Pak Fajar. Good afternoon, everybody. So I do aware that the time constraint already lunchtime. So I will go to the important issues dealing with this. Please. I thank you first, Pak Anton, and also Mr. Lee, that already highlight the information dealing with standardization and conformity assessment. Some of you may be fully aware with the standardization, but maybe some of you only aware about GRC. So please, next slide, make it, this situation is, we want to provide understanding the role of and function standardization and conformity assessment in the context of GRC. So make it the same perception, okay? Next. So why we need standardization and conformity assessment? So this is the important from the experience many countries that already first is resulted from the consensus among stakeholders involved. So it's mean it's because consensus. Second is reliable system acceptance in competency and result conformity assessment. And third is core pillar, one of the core pillar from the quality infrastructure system in assessing global market. So it's mean that the pillar for accessing the global market. And the last is part of the good regulatory practices addressing good governance need. Next. This is just to make underline the information that the word is coming to, we call it STRACAP, Standard Technical Regulation and Conformity Assessment Procedure. This is basic for every, what we call it, transaction in the world, dealing with the, what we call it, accessing the international global trade. Okay, next. Again, this is to inform you that we are, next again. BSN in the position of, we are part of the pillar for supporting quality infrastructure system adopted in Indonesia. There are so many options in the world to put the situation, but in Indonesia, national standard body, national accreditation body, and also national metrology institute is a role and function of BSN. So the other conformity assessment procedure, the conformity assessment bodies will follow the system of international already adopted by Indonesia through BSN, through CAN, and so on. Next. So this is the three situation role of function BSN. So I do hope that you will understand the situation of BSN. Next. Again, next. This is already, thank you, Mr. Lee, already highlight this objective of our law. Next. First, I would like to underline this. There are 5 cover of standardization and conformity assessment. First is dealing with the product. Second, dealing with the services, dealing with system, and processes, and also personnel. So please understand that standardization and conformity assessment might refer to the not only one product, but maybe in some cases dealing as a holistic system consisting, let's say, for risk management. There are the system standard for risk management system, and then for competent of person, and some of them also dealing with the services. Next, I will next. Just next, make it next. Okay, next. Next again, just to make it simple because of time, yeah. So I will go to the governance, risk, and standard dealing with the GRC. Next. So I will try to underline from the information about the core GRC principle. So there are some ethical management dealing with the governance, and then the standard for risk management, and then for compliance with dealing with the regulation. Next. Again. So please understand that our president, through the long program of the government, already decided that one of the 4 program from government is one of them consisting good governance. So please understand, good governance is already a top priority by the government. Next. Again, I would like to understand, So the situation of BSN in the good regulatory practices, it's mean that the regulator, when develop the good policy making practices, if supported, combined with the standardization, good standardization practices, so it's mean that good regulatory practices. Next. Why? Then again, so we have already developed so many standards dealing with the governance. You might know that for the public sector services, we have already standard dealing with the compliance management system adopted from the international standard, also anti-bribery, and then also the business continuity management system. So it means that if you would like to use it as what we call it a reference for your governance, please. Next. This is just to inform you, at international level, the recent news is Rector Unila already captured by KPK because what we call it bribery. So it means that next, we have already standard adopting from international standard. So SNE ISO 37001 is the standard for anti-bribery. So we do aware that the standard is so many benefit to implement it. So you can read it later on. I do hope that my paper is already circulated later on. So again, next. The other standard is dealing with the business continuity management system. This also standard adopted from international standard, the ISO 22301. So this standard is also dealing with the, what we call it, sustainability development goal. So it's mean that when we implement this standard, so it's mean that you already implement the number of SDG, 3, 7, 8, and so on. Next, risk management again, next. So this is just why we do need, why we need a standardization in this case. So because the standardization might impact for the, this is maybe because transfer, yeah. Standardization, change decision, and also for attention and risk perception. So the next, this is standard dealing with Pak Anton, where the chairman of our national committee developed the standard adopting the ISO 31000 standard. So it's mean that this standard is core, what we call it, the backbone for any issues dealing with the risk management. You would like implement environment management standard, anti-bribery, environment security, quality, compliance, and so on. If everything dealing with the risk management, so you will use this standard, already adopted into national standard. Next, this is dealing with the family standard on risk management. So I do hope that after this presentation, you will utilize this standard, yeah, in the context of risk management. Next, also we just sharing the progress at Indonesia level. At international, if risk higher, highest, then highest, then the conformity assessment procedure will, what we call it, make it, what we call it, higher, strictly by inspection, by certification, and so on. This is just at international level already adopted as interaction between the risk and conformity assessment procedure. Next. Then this is just inform you that you might know that Indonesian law or omnibus law already received what we call it risk-based thinking, risk-based approach in the make it permission or we call it perizinan berusaha berbasis risiko in Indonesia, ya. Next. Again, next. So I would like to inform you, in some cases, our national standard, SNI, already implemented by the regulator through the regulation. So it's mean that mandatory standard. Mandatory standard, all company, not only the government institution, not only the state private enterprise, but also private sector must follow, must comply with the mandatory standard. Next. So why do we, what we call it, discuss about the standardization in this, what we call it, view from market reference, voluntary standard, and market requirement, because mandatory standard. So this is the situation in Indonesia. Next. Again, standardization, why we use the standardization and conformity assessment is because approach by recognition of the conformity assessment result. And then we what we call it, using the international standard for international acceptance. Next. This is just to inform you, dealing with the at national level, we have, maybe Bapak Ibu tahu ya, SPBE, we call it sistem pemerintahan berbasis elektronik, electronic based government system, consisting 8 management system. Next. So 8 management system, risk management, information security management, information security, and so on, everything will refer to the standard. So risk management refer to ISO, SNI, ISO 30,000, and then for information security refer to the 37,000, and then the other standard, asset management, and then change management, and so on. So it means that standard can use to, what we call it, deliver the mandate from the management system of government, what we call it, SPB. Next. So, and in conclusion, next. So first, I would like to share in this forum, you might adopt the best practice according to the, what we call it, international recognized system. So second, dealing with personal competency. So every organization need to improve their competence. So it's mean that ideally dealing with the relevant requirement or standard in the aspect of GRC. And the last is using the reference document. Ideally, again, refer to use the relevant standard that adopted from the international standard published by international standard development organization. So I do hope that this information might useful for you in the context of why we need standardization and conformity assessment procedure. So actually, I'm not an expert in what we call it GRC, but in this situation, I just trying to what we call it provide the information dealing with standardization and conformity assessment, Pak Fajar, and then I do hope that the audience after this come to BSN, enjoy the standardization and conformity assessment procedure SIM at the national level. We have already so many standards. If you would like to use it, please. If no, I don't know. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Hendro Kusumo, for the presentations. Yeah, very, very attentive. Next, please, Ibu Diarso, to
Thank you, Pak
take your
Fajar.
presentations. And still the same, your time is 15 minutes.
Distinguished leaders for organizing committee, all speakers, it is really privilege for me to be able to participate in this really remarkable event. If I may start with my lesson learned from Pak Chandra and Ibu Cynthia, I think I will be convinced now that you will not be able to make your GRC impactful until you bring it to the hand of the leader. So that is the example or the exemplar that Bu Cynthia already explained about the importance of GRC and how GRC become impactful for PLN. So my turn now, I would like to tell you about two things. First is why GRC is important for financial sector and how to make GRC be more impactful for Indonesia to reach our vision as one of probably prominent financial center in 2045. My little contribution. So let's focus, because I'm from BKF, let's focus about the macro first. I have 7 slides. I will try to be quick. Slides number 5. Let's pay attention on COVID-19 and how government can nurture the government to be adaptive and to be bounce back, to bounce back while facing very difficult situation. COVID-19 is the first time how the health sector impacting not only economy, but also the stability of financial sector. But Indonesia proven to be resilient. Indonesia has remarkably, bounced back, come back to the growth before, even far more before pandemic before Q1 2020. So household consumption, government consumption, investment, export, and production side shows remarkable numbers. And we do believe that is part of the governance. So one that I can witness, the minister, all ministers, the KSSK, BI, OJK, LPS, even BPKP, KPK, 4 coordinating ministries sit together to think about how to become resilient. And that is the fastest, revision of the budget, that we must improve our capacity to be resilient, to be adaptive. Government consume more than 4% of GDP to save lives, to provide vaccine. So this is Indonesia, one among the best in terms of performance in managing through COVID pandemic. That's also witnessed by G20 as one of the, agenda currently is to continuing, recover together, recover stronger. And Indonesia is the chairmanship of G20 this year. Now I would like to turn to the financial sector. I think it's quite interesting here. Slide number 12. Indonesia Vision 2045 aspires to be a high-income country. Indonesia has become one of 20 biggest economy in the world since 2017. Our GDP reached $1 trillion. So the prediction from IMF, prediction for OECD, prediction from Coordinating Ministry of Economy, Indonesia will be potentially one of 5th or probably 7th biggest economy in the world. So that means, GDP per capita will reach around 23,000. And the GDP at total can be reached $9 trillion. So are we ready? So that is the biggest question. Can we be, this is the great vision, isn't it? But I also would like to insert you with some little notes on financial sector on the right side. Banking sector has been dominating our financial sector since 2015. The capitalization, actually, I will try to explain it later. It's quite small. Pension is quite small, only less than 7% of GDP. When I try to listen to Pak Chandra presentation, governance level of Indonesia is the lowest in the emerging countries. And this also signifies how important the capitalization of pension, because the tendency was when your capitalization of pension in one country, that's quite remarkably in line with the governance level of that country. So we are in the lowest in the governance part. That's shocking. So we must do something. And I believe the expert is here. That's why I really be privileged to have all of you to come with me to discuss about how we can reach our vision. Because we have potential, but we need to do something in order to grab that potential. Next slide. Yeah, so this is the fact part. As you can see, banking sector dominates Indonesia since 2015. Our capital market is remarkable, 7,000 index. But you see, that's only 48% of our GDP. That's the lowest in the ASEAN 5. Banking sector, 7,000 trillion, but that capital is not enough because that was the lowest in the ASEAN 5. Look at Malaysia, 206 per GDP. Look at even Philippines, 100% of its GDP. So the capacity of us to collect money to save is really low. We potentially, probably, my calculation, just only 3% of our income every single month sit in the financial sector. Where are they? They probably put in the emas, I don't know where. But that's not working for the sake of our prosperity in the future. Insurance and pensions, shocking us, just only 13% and the total. Look at Malaysia, now already 80% of GDP. They already started mandatory pension since 1952, 10% of every single take-home pay since 52. And now they reach capitalization by 80% in insurance and pension. And you know Australia? Australia now is already 130% of its GDP. They started already in 1992, accumulating starting from 5% until now 10%, 12% from its take-home pay. In 1992, harapan hidup Australia is 74, similar to Indonesia now. So I believe Indonesia has great potential. If we do something, by 2045, Indonesia emas is in our hand. Next slide, I would like to go to slide 15. Yeah, this one, oh sorry. Now to 25. We have the fact, we have the problems, and how to grab the opportunity. So this is what we are thinking. There are 15 laws that already obsolete for financial sector. Why is it obsolete? Because Malaysia and Singapore has already reformed their insurance, pension industry, banking, capital market since 2000, since 2015, since 2020. So they already updated. We are still lag behind. That's why we need more comprehensive and holistic financial reform. It's already initiated by the government and the parliament. So we're looking forward to finalize the omnibus law in financial sector this year. Next slide, 26. So how the financial sector reform will accelerate, the potential for Indonesia to improve its governance, to improve the saving of the people, to improve the financial sector to work hard for Indonesia prosperity in the future. So we need to address banking. There are suboptimal size ratio of asset to GDP, still less than 60%. There are excess number of banks, too many. Overhead cost is too many. It's more expensive to do banking in Indonesia rather than even in ASEAN 5. There are low credit disbursement compared to Vietnam even. We are just only less than 30%. Vietnam can reach 60%. We have imbalanced deposit holding, concentrated to the rich. Probably the rich is already dominating probably 80% of the fund. Capital market, they're suboptimal size. Yeah, capitalization is still low, more not far than 50% of GDP. They have high dependency on foreign investors still. Why? Because our capacity to save is really low. That's why if government want to invest, we have to attract more debt. And the debt can be very dangerous. That's why we need to improve our capacity to save, to pay more tax, to pay, to insurance, to do pension, etc. Insurance sector is low size. The penetration is the lowest in the ASEAN 5. Insurance and pension now has already accounted for 1,000 trillion fund in the financial sector. You know what? If we can improve it to 60%, that means there will additional 6,000 trillions in the financial sector. That demands professional for GRC. That requires our competencies to support, the governance and also the impact of that accumulation of fund. Pension fund, currently we are lack of public understanding. The literacy is very, very low. The accumulation is really, really the lowest in the ASEAN 5. And there are also overlapping regulations program. We have CKK, CKM, we have CHT, we have CP, we have CKP. You know what? The total accumulation just less than 7% of GDP. And the manfaat, the benefit is far more the ILO standard. The ILO standard is 40% benefit from take-home pay before entering pension age. Probably even for very high senior official in the government, they can only reach 20% maximum, probably less. Next slide. Number 29, yes. So this is the pillars, how then we can together, I will just trying to use or offer this in part of the GRC methodology. So we do benchmark, we do how we develop this together with all 18 line ministries and the parliament. It's actually on to reach the importance of Indonesia financial sector to be deep, innovative, efficient, inclusive, reliable, as well as strong and stable. I have a little note on inclusive. Indonesia inclusiveness in financial sector is also the lowest in the ASEAN 5. Kepemilikan rekening, the ownership of rekening in the bank, just only less than 50%. The inclusion in terms of access is already 78%, but the literacy is lower than 40%. That means there much decision-making process in the financial sector are already lacking of literacy. That means exposed to the risk abundantly. That's why GRC is really important here. Pay much attention on OMKM is also really important, but I will not touch that today. Next, on the 33, I think. This is also the way I would like to witness on the importance of GRC in the Ministry of Finance. Yeah, I'm already listened to Ibu Cynthia and Pak Chandra. Yeah. I think in terms of governance, we need to put our emphasis the role of leadership. In terms of risk management, I would like to support the previous prominent speaker, Pak Lee, and also Pak Antonius. We must do integrated reporting. In terms of compliance, that's also the external regulation, the external or internal collaboration is really a must. Formulating regulation, we cannot do it by our own. We have to collaborate. KSSK is getting more important to do synergy. I think line ministry, developing vision for the development, that must be involving also financial sector. That must be also involving the professionals. In that way, I do believe Indonesia will reach confidently our great potential in Indonesia Mas 2045. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak Adi Budiarso, for the presentations. Yeah, I'm slipped with the numbers, yeah. Okay, now it is time for question and answers, yeah. I have a bunch of questions in here, but times only allows us to have one question for every speakers in here, yeah. So I will try to conclude those questions, yeah. The first questions to Ibu Cynthia, yeah, of course, yeah. The war room, the guest war room is very something that we are like, wow, yeah, it's something, yeah. There are so many questions about that as well, but so I try to conclude all of these questions, yeah. How do you inspired with this CAS war room, yeah, to implement the GRC? Because GRC itself seems like a big thing. PLN is a huge company, yeah, with 1.6 trillion rupiah to manage, yeah. And further, we would like to know with the CAS war room, maybe 5.0, what it's gonna be look like. Maybe it's beyond only finance, it's beyond, yeah, only, maybe the name gonna be changed to something, yeah, more extensive, yeah, with the size of PLN. Yes, Bu Cynthia.
Thanks, Pak Fajar, for the questions. First of all, I need to make it clear, so I need to clarify. So the CAS war room is not my own ideas, so it's not my initiatives alone. So it's basically driven by the whole management of PLN, specifically the leadership of our CEO at the time. So basically, what drives us to implant this system, because at the time we have been facing a very crucial uncertainty, you know, a very solid situation where the COVID-19, no one would expect anything to happen. So this, you know, this uncertainty that is on our face, now that we need to have a system and something to be put in place into the decision-making process. So that's basically the rationale within the BOD. So if you probably, you know, I would share now. So we have the BOD meeting almost every day from morning till, you know, till dawn. So everything, so for the whole 2 years, it's been a hard work, and everyone in PLN also, you know, show that. I think the point that is mentioned by Lee Dietmar is the congruent, yeah. So the point of congruent here is that, you know, we need to push everything for the whole organization, put in place a system, but you need to also, you know, walk the talk. So everyone in the board, in the management, in the senior leaders they show also the concerns, and I think sort of the congruence was there in the system. So I think that's probably the situation.
Yes, thank you very much, Ibu Cynthia Rusli. Yeah, although I would like to ask more about that answer, but yeah, the time doesn't allow us. Okay, and then, thank you. The next question will go to Pak Hendro. Yeah, Pak Hendro, well, we see that standard is very important, right? But lots of companies think that they already implement those standards based on their thought, based on their best practices, and they think sometimes it's enough. So why does it means that maybe, like we also see, I've often see, yeah, every company is like, my own way, their way, I way, your way, PLN way maybe, yeah, which they think it's good, and maybe they think it's sufficient, yeah. Why do you think this standard still could be important, yeah, to be owned by each of these company, especially in the GRC level?
Okay, thank you, Pak Fajar. Actually, if dealing with the business-to-business agreement, it's up to them to decide which standard. But when we think about acceptance at international level, and then traceability with the international system, and then best practice already adopted by the countries, two countries, and the last is mutual recognition. How can we comply with mutual recognition? Is because the standard already harmonized with the international standard. Make it easy. But if using way, whatever the way, yeah. It's meant that maybe for the internal, it's okay. Yes. But when trying, let's say, PLN would like to have a subcontractor, then a certain requirement already established by PLN, but yeah, if there is for PLN only, it's no problem. But when we talk about at Indonesia level, at international level, and so on, we need the harmonized standard, recognition, result of conformity assessment, and then the last is mutual recognition. So this is why we need standardization and conformity assessment, that PSN role and function already mandated from the government. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, yeah, Pak Hendro Kusumo. So the next questions, and also last questions, unfortunately, unless we still have some time, yeah. Itu to Pak Adi Budiarso, yeah. Pak, in sense of policy, do you think is there any requirement of policy that makes GRC is a requirement for every company in Indonesia? Yeah.
Every company, yeah.
Every company.
Yeah.
Because every company have finance, right?
Yeah, sure. I think that's also signifies my little conclusion in the beginning. Until you bring GRC into the hand of the leader, GRC will never be impactful. So I do believe, with or with no even imposed of the regulation, all leaders must have GRC in its place. I can give you example of the Ministry of Finance. In the hand of leaders, performance management, during that time, Pak, we have reviewed 9 standards. And the government must adapt which standard that we must apply or we should apply in the organization. And the Minister of Finance choose balance scorecard. That's example of performance management. I think the leaders of PPK, KPK also did the same thing. Until then, balance scorecard becoming the standard of Kemenpan RB. With that, I think the role of leaders is really important here. And the second, I will borrow Pak Abe Susanto, yeah, stands the first name, because the initial is quite similar with me, Abe. Yeah. So in order to be adaptive and to be able to bounce back facing difficult situation, you must have GRC. Thank you so much.
You must have GRC, that's gonna be the key. Thank you very much, yeah. So we still have 1 minute time left. Is there anything that you want to add before I close remark? Ibu Cynthia, Pak Hendro, and Pak Adi?
maybe I take this chance. I think three persistent themes that have been mentioned by Liditmar on the GRC has been implemented in PLN. So one is really integrated GRC. It's proven, check. And second is leverage technology that helps us in doing so, and also pursue value. So the higher purpose of PLN in doing what we are doing in our business shows that all these three key themes in GRC works well. So thank you very much. I'm glad today I have the opportunity to hear Liditmar, and it confirms my understanding and also the beliefs that the GRC is something very useful for the growth of the company. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibu Cynthia Rusli. Pak Hendro, Pak Adi, is there
Yeah,
anything?
I just would like to thank you for the organizing committee and the GRC community. I really enjoyed this moment. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So as a closing remark, I try to make notes from our distinguished speakers. Yeah, first from Ibu Cynthia, we can see that how the cash war room is the truest, GRC implementation that actually we can see. It's not only something that we talk about the GRNC, but it is really true over there, and it's also probably start from something very simple, and then it's trying to grow, to a more broadened area in the company, So, and then from Hendro, we also see, governance is important, risk is a necessity, compliance is a must, but to be standardized, is the way that we understand them, then we can improve, and then we can standard, everything with every one of our stakeholders, in the future. So it is very important. And the last from Pak Adi, that I get that GRC is the words for today. We must be adaptive, we must be agile, and we must recover quickly in this difficult time through the GRC. So it is my honor to lead this session. Join me to give a big applause to our three distinguished speakers. Thank you very much, to the speakers. So I give back the time to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fajar. Would you like to please stay with me in the stage? Don't get in a rush to leave. Before we proceed the next session, I would like to invite to the stage Mr. Charles S. R. First to give the token of appreciation to our moderator, Mr. Fajar Proboseno, and our speaker, Mr. Hendro Kusumo, Mrs. Cynthia Rusli, and Mr. Adi Budiarso. Now we are watching Mr. Charles R. First are among us. And now the first token of appreciation is given to
So,
Mr. Adi.
Allow me to, on behalf of all participants, I will give you this token of appreciations, which actually cannot express enough our sincere gratitude for your coming, your time, and your presentation. So thank you again to Ibu Cynthia, Pak Hendro, and Pak Adi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Charles. And now the first token of appreciation is given from Mr. Charles to Mr. Adi. Please give the best applause for all of us. It's a very amazing moment. Thank you very much. Because of their dedication of implementation of GRC in your each organization, it's make it really works. And now, congratulations to Mr. Hendro Kusumo. Thank you. And now the very most beautiful and prettiest girl in the stage, Mrs. Cynthia Rusli. Thank you so much. Okay, please give the best applause for all of us. Thank you very much. And now this is the last. From Mr. Charles to Mr. Fajar. Boleh kasih tepuk tangan yang paling meriah sekali lagi, Yogyakarta. And now we take a picture together. Maybe Bu Cynthia, you wanna in the center? Okay, please take a picture together and show the token of appreciation to the camera. Proudly, yeah? Wow, it's very, very amazing. Okay, in my count, 3, 2, 1, stay. Give the best smile. Hold your stomach. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope you maybe sit again. Thank you very much, Mr. Fajar. And once again, thank you so much, Mr. Fajar, Mr. Charles, Mrs. Cynthia, Mr. Hendro Kusumo, and Mr. Adi Budiarso. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will never get tired to inform you and always remind you to go to the booth of Cyberwhale, because they already wanna give you a special door prize, which is iPad Air. Please give the best applause for Cyberwhale. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will take a break for about 1 hour. And please make sure you'll be back in this room for the on-site participant, and for the online participant, please come back to this Zoom meeting about 1 hour again, sharp. Afterward, we will enter the keynote speaker session. And also thank you for this event was initiated by Asosiasi GRC Association, Perkumpulan Profesional Governance Indonesia, PAGI, Association of Indonesia Governance Professional, Indonesia Risk Management Professional Association, IRMAPA, Institute of Compliance Professional Indonesia, ICOPI, Indonesia Professional in Audit and Control Association, IPAKA, and also sponsored by Perusahaan Listrik Negara, PLN, Allianz Insurance Indonesia, FWD Insurance Indonesia, Pertalite, Pupuk Sriwijaya, Tugu Reasuransi, Mandiri, Inhold, Cyberwhale, and Diligent, and also support by CRMS Indonesia, LSP MKS, LSP GRK, Irma, and Way Academy and Top Business. So I'll see you again in about 1 hour again, and have a great lunchtime. It will be held in Samazana Restaurant from the right side of the hotel's lobby. So I'll see you again in about 1 hour. See you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite from the Perusahaan Listrik Negara, PLN, to take a picture together in the stage, maybe in a front of stage. Okay, once again I inform you from Perusahaan Listrik Negara, PLN.